this island, in spite of its grim name, Manchonak, the island of death, because to him it was the island of life. He had shellfish, he had animals, he made pastures, cleared forest, and he made a paradise for himself. He had the running water, you see. It was the only island that had the streams running. It's also the only Charles I grant and the only lordship and manor intact on this continent. That's Canada and the United States. So it's unique in North America. Well, what a nice day. Now we have to get you. Yeah, ladies. Let's see. Oh, we're gonna do this. No, that's all right. That's all right. Now, look at, isn't it lovely? Yes, now you'll see it right out here. And see the swan? There's a swan over there. Yes, that big? Yes, that is. Yes. This is where the gazebo was, the pagoda. And this is where the ladies had tea, you see? Now look at the swans out there.
What bird is that? Right out there, that big bird?
That's the swan. No, it's gone. Oh, there it is, yes. It was the swan. Yes. There's a duck flying there. Canada geese.
This is fantastic.
Is it what you expected?
Just exquisite. This is
The French ambassador said to me, quelle diversité de paysage. What a diversity of landscape. Ladies were visiting the manor house. They had to invent things to do. Each day they'd go to a different part of the island. And this would take them a long time from the manor house to get out here. As you said, you didn't realize it was this far. They had this Chinese pagoda here, which was very fragile and didn't last long, but this is where it was. And a break would come out with the silver tea set, the tables and chairs around it in the pagoda, and then the ladies would arrive in their lovely dresses. They would sit here and watch the birds on Boswick Pond. The men would be out hunting or fishing, and the women in those days, they didn't want to be tan, they wanted to be white. They were in the pagoda with parasols and everything. They would do needlepoint. They would read novels. They would write letters. Nice little cakes. They would eat that with their tea in the pagoda. There's a lovely swimming beach there, all the way along to the point. John Singer Sargent did a sketch of my great aunts coming out of the water there when he stayed here. The glacier brought marble, granite, sandstone, fossils, quartz. I picked up a lot of quartz, some of it quite translucent. I used to take it to Sag Harbor, to a place that would polish it with diamond dust, and I made paperweights out of it. And as you see, swans, ospreys, Canada geese, White egrets. My grandmother made a sensation going to the opening of the Metropolitan Opera in the 1880s. And it was written in the paper that Mrs. David Lion Gardiner arrived in her box and in her hair a white egret feather. And she had a diamond holder made by Tiffany. I'm sure pirate diamond. And reset. And then she had white gloves right up to the armpits and this white dress and her white hair. She must have looked stunning. And they said the white egrets are the latest fashion in the hair, but Mrs. Gardiner's were not from Paris. They were homegrown from Gardiner's Island. Isn't that lovely? Horny, but true. She'd be, I suppose, jailed by the Audubon Society today, having the egret feathers. That's good, taking the clouds. Look at those grapes. I'm going to get some. They are delicious. They're the wild grapes, but they make this marvelous jelly. And we use this with the deer meat. And with the wild turkey, we make a sauce of this and the blood of the venison. And it's absolutely delicious. And we go in to the virgin oak forest, and you will notice how the air changes completely. It's very dramatic. See how nice and cool it is?
Oh, yeah.
This is the largest virgin oak forest left on the Atlantic seaboard. See, here you are in the forest primeval, virtually untouched since Columbus discovered America. Now you've got pre-Columbian oak killed by the gypsy moth, devastating the forest 2 years running. It was so old it couldn't put out a second leafing. Do you see? A tree like this was here when Lion Gardiner purchased the island from the native Indians and got his grant from Charles I. Lion Gardiner got it for trading cloth, beads, some dogs from the great chief Wyandotte. He sent a letter back to the War Office in England and said, "Me lords, I would fain brave all the savages of the New World, then go back across that dreadful Atlantic. It took over 2 months to get here." And he said, "I've had a son born unto me, David, who would never survive as an infant the crossing." You see, there were no refrigerators. And the child would have had to eat nothing but salt pork and hardtack. Scurvy would have killed it. And the same way the little girl, Elizabeth, born here, he said, "I humbly petition His Majesty to grant me this island in lieu of my passage back to England," because he did not come to immigrate. He was guaranteed his passage back to England. I have to be with you. As someone said, if you're going to do something on Gardiner's Island, you better have me because I'm the walking encyclopedia and the biggest historian that's living on it. My great-grandmother put up the monument because people were staying in the manor house a lot in those days, and they all wanted to see the Kidd treasure site. Captain Kidd was not a pirate. By the way, he was a privateersman, which was perfectly legal. He was hanged in 1699. The treasure was only on Gardiner's Island 2 years, from 1697 to 1699. When Kidd buried it, 24 chests were hauled in 1 mile from the beach, from the sloop Antonio and the Adventure Galley. And the sailors buried it behind you down in this hollow. Kidd told Gardiner, who saw exactly where it was dug in, if I come back for this treasure and it is not here, I shall have your head or your son. You didn't fool around with Captain Kidd.
I feel like I've stepped back in time.
Isn't it? Yeah. Well, it's a total time capsule, you see.
It really is. It certainly is.
There are clay lenses under the soil, and that holds the water like you'd hold the water in a cement swimming pool. Rain accumulates, and that's what feeds the running streams and the ponds. Lion Gardiner, when he got this island from the Indians, he could have had Fisher's Island, he could have had Shelter Island. None of them had running water. Here we had running water. You can drink out of the streams today. They are unpolluted, you see. When I'm thirsty in the forest, I'll often drink out of the stream right near the hanging oak, you see. This is the hanging oak. And here was the notch where the cord went. The man was put on a stool here, do you see? And it was knocked out from under him, and that broke his neck. Hangings were a great event. Grandmothers, children, everybody on the estate came. There was no TV then. One tenant farmer murdered his brother, and the lord of the manor had to take action. Had a 12 jurymen, just and true, bring in a verdict of guilty, and then he'd say, you would be taken hence to the place of execution and hanged by the neck until you are dead. The basis of the Gardiner family power and wealth was the land. It was before factories had been built in America. There were no Ford factories, no Campbell's soup, no Post Toasting. This is Charles I, the king that gave us the island. You see, he was the best looking king they ever had in England. This painting was made by Daniel Maitens, the painter before Van Dyck. This was a portrait of me when I was in the Navy as lieutenant commander in World War II. John Lion Gardiner, the 7th Lord of the Manor. I'm the 16th. Very good looking, well bred, handsome guy. This is his wife, Sarah Griswold, the daughter of Matthew Griswold, governor of Connecticut. We were always making good marriages, either for money or for political roots to protect us. This is my Aunt Julia in the White House. She was born in the Manor House on the island and entered the White House age 23, the youngest first lady we ever had, the first bride to enter the White House. They thought of everything. We had a schoolhouse and the chapel, and the boys lived there, boys that were sold into service to us by their parents, not black slaves, but indentured servants. We gave the child's parents some money. The child then worked off the debt by certain years of service on the island. And they lived here. This house was built in the 1660s. They had dinner inside, you see. They did errands, ran to the dock with letters and things like that. They also helped out serving in the house, in the manor house. And my grandmother told me every Sunday the Bound boys had to come up to the manor house after their supper. And old Mrs. Gardiner would ask them the catechism and the 10 Commandments. And if they didn't know it, they'd be sent back to the clergyman to learn it. And it was very feudal. Okay, now the windmill. The whole of the top of the building swung around to face the wind. The sails were on the slats, like it's on a sailboat. The sails were stretched. Here, if you come, you'll see is one chunk of oak tree. Look at it. The size of it. That was the main axis. And this whole huge wheel, look at the size of it, revolved. And it was from there that all of this complicated machinery worked, you see. Now, the other thing is, here, I want you to notice in this construction, every one of these sections is curved. The size of that oak, it's so thick, so that's not easy to bend. There's the hopper, where they dump the grain, and they're revolved into the millstone. This is the sifter for the fine-grained flour with the silk screening in it, see? And this turned from an auxiliary takeoff of the power of the wind on the straps. The federal government has done a monograph, which is in the Library of Congress, on the Dominy brothers' wonderful mechanisms inside the windmill. What did they do with nothing but the stone on the island to make bearings out of it, and the forest to make the wooden gears out of it? And look at the complication of this. This is the direct ancestor of the LEM that got us on the moon. And that's what is the Yankee ingenuity that has made America great. You see? This was a private deer park for the lords of the manor. The finest shots in the world came to shoot. And you keep abreast, going down these islands because of the deer, the quail, the pheasant, the wild turkey, and so forth, was a famous sporting estate, is. And all these pheasants would come out of this brush, you see, and fly. And a driven pheasant is one of the hardest shots because he goes almost vertically up. We now have a population of deer, many, many hundred, too many for the island to support. We have to shoot about 300 a year in order to keep the population down. The doe knows nothing about the pill, you see. And the bucks are very amorous. And this island is not elastic. You cannot stretch it when the herd doubles, you see. 900 acres must be mowed every year now. The rest is hilly and forested. My ancestor had everything he wanted, Lion Gardiner, because there was shellfish, the Gardiner's Island oysters, the marvelous lobsters in the rocks, which I've gone in and gotten myself with my own hands. Trout in the ponds, in the streams, was a paradise. There's Tobacco Lot Pond, you see? So serene with all those duck floating and the mute swans. Flotillas of them swimming about on it. And the forest verge of Rogers Wood coming down to the edge of the pond. Rogers Wood was called after a tenant farm in the old days that rented that part of the island. There are ospreys at the other end, but of course they're flying around now, the young. They're not nest-bound anymore. They're learning to fish themselves at this late stage in August. What, they're huge? They look like something prehistoric from the time of the dinosaurs.
They have about a 6-foot wingspan.
Wingspan,
Right?
yes, even 7 or 8. This is something, isn't it? There you'll see a lovely osprey's nest, a classic nest on that low twig. Can you see it? Right there. We had 380 nests back in the 1930s. Nowhere else was there such a concentration of osprey nests on this planet. There are 30 active nests on the island this year, 1978. There were 28 babies fledged as of the last count I had from Paul Spitzer, who was a young man who was getting his doctorate, really, on the ospreys, and largely on this island. And he told me that they are coming back slowly. We put the bands every year on the ospreys, and ornithologists have found Gardiner's Island ospreys in the Amazon. Nobody knew before this systematic banding that the osprey's migration went that far in the winter to Brazil. This island is so fascinating because it's a time capsule not only for birds, but for so much more, and for human beings. But I must tell you that it wouldn't have been here if it hadn't been for a family that happened to love it before me, all the way through generation after generation. And we're in our 4th century as custodians. And we've been good custodians. We shouldn't be penalized or punished. We have been damn good. That's why it's here today. This is the family cemetery. All one family, only Gardiner. Nowhere in America do you see grandfathers and great-grandfathers and great-great-grandfathers side by side, an entire genealogy in stone. And here you'll see the tomb of the 12th Lord of the Manor of Gardiner's Island, you see? If you read it here, jump here and you can see John Lion Gardiner, you see? Died 12th Lord of the Manor of Gardiner's Island. Here you see Samuel Buell Gardiner. If you come this side, you can see it. 10th proprietor. Already, 1815 he was born. He was already the 10th. I'm the 16th. And I'm actively building shopping centers in 1978 today for revenue, for the maintenance of this island. But you shows you how you have to hustle. You cannot sit on your derriere and think that because you have inherited wealth, it stays. It doesn't in this inflation. And all my leases have percentages on the cash registers. So as the inflation progresses, which I'm a firm believer in it will, my rents go up because the percentages on bigger and bigger volumes of cash. As the price of eggs goes up, so my rents go up. for the maintenance of this island. You understand? That's where my tombstone will be there. And my wife's. You see, it's a nice, peaceful place. You can see the sea from here.